I am going to let me choose another question. I've done this one, I've discussed. Okay, let me do some trigonometry. The trigonometry came from Fulefelo Paramela. Fulefelo, please, if I say Fulefelo, if I said your name incorrectly, please forgive me. Thank you for this question. This question is always a little bit problematic for matric students and for grade 11s when this question comes into the paper. So let's go straight into the question. It says, if the cosine of 23 degrees is given as 1 minus t squared, express the following in terms of t. And this is a 7-mark question. There's 3 parts of it, or parts to this question. Okay, first part, in terms of t, the sine of 23. Now, I think they were very nice there. We know that the sine of 23 is usually plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine squared of 23 degrees. Okay, sine squared plus cos squared is 1. But because it's 23, it lies in the first quadrant. So in the first quadrant, all ratios are positive, so we only work with a positive root. Okay, now remember what they told me. They told me the cosine of 23, not the cosine squared. So be very careful here. If you put it in, you get 1 minus the cosine squared is simply just 1 minus t squared. Because cosine was the root of 1 minus t squared, the square of that is actually just the thing on the inside. Okay, so we get the root of 1 minus 1 is 0. A negative times a negative is a plus t squared. And that gives you t. For those of you doing AP maths, you will most probably want to say it's the absolute value of t, because that per definition is what the root of t squared is. Okay, so that is where that part of the question ends. The second part, part 2, asks us to find the tan of 113 degrees. Okay, now we know that 113 lies where? In the second quadrant. So we've got to reduce that to an angle that lies in the first quadrant. So we're going to say, okay, this is equivalent to the tan of 180 degrees minus 67 degrees. Because it's in the second quadrant, it's minus the tan of the angle 67. And now, folks, we don't know where to go with this. We don't. Let's face it. Okay, so let's look at how the 67 is related to the 23. If I take 67 and I add 23 to it, I get 90. So these two are complementary angles. So I can go to my information and I can say, okay, let me draw the triangle that represents that information. Okay, I have the cosine of 23, which was adjacent, the root of 1 minus t squared over 1. And I now need to find this length over there. Now, folks, if we find this length, that's exactly what we did over here. Okay, so that length is t. Okay, so then we get minus, that is 67 degrees. So minus the tan of 67. Tan is opposite over adjacent, so it's minus. Let me just remove those brackets quickly over there. We have, where's my pen? There we go. We now have minus the opposite over the adjacent for the tan of 67. Okay, folks, that's beautiful. The last question is asking for the sine of 67. You've got 67 there, so the sine will be opposite over hypotenuse. The sine of that's opposite over hypotenuse. Thank you for that question, Fulufelo. I really appreciate questions like these that we know kids have problems with when they write the matric paper. Folks, don't be scared of trigonometry. Trigonometry you summarize on one page. You learn that theory and you apply it in the paper.